Okay, for this section on bait making, we've got Jules Webb from the Carp Company, who, along with his partner Bob, have been making carp baits for 16 odd years, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right.
And if you can, I think the idea is run us through the basics of bait making. It's a heck of a subject otherwise, but if you can give us some good tips and the basics, we'd be
okay.
away.
Right, as you say, we're off to the basics. So today we're just going to start with 3 egg mix.
Just a small mix?
Yeah, it's probably the easiest thing to start with instead of going in with a bigger mix. Start with 3 eggs. If anything goes wrong,
your mistakes are small.
That's it, you haven't wasted so much. So basically today we're going to do the Icelandic red. As I say, we're going to do a 3 egg mix. So 3 eggs, we're going to crack them in the bowl. Get the easy bit first. So we're going to do the Icelandic red. We're going to use the caviar, cranberry, some amino and some salmon oil in with it, which is a nice sort of base, easy recipe to start with.
Okay.
It's nice and easy to roll, and obviously it's a good mix and it'll catch your fish as well.
And this mix has been catching fish for a long time.
Yeah.
I
think we've been doing it about 10 years now, and the results speak for themselves.
Reputation,
yes. So we've got the eggs in, we've whisked them up, and we're going to start by including the flavours first.
Right, and this is where it's all liquids first?
Yeah,
you just
definitely.
Okay.
Yeah. Obviously all the flavour levels are on the bottles. As we're doing 3 eggs, we're going to cut down the dosage by half. So we're going to do 2.5 ml of cranberry.
Right, and something you were telling me in the past about is not to go over the top with these flavours, which a lot of people attempted to do.
Yeah, I mean that's right. I mean, it's not so important with ours because there's no chemicals in them, but with a lot of flavours that you might use, the levels are there for a reason. Too much is going to affect your bait in a
it's not helping things.
No, I mean we've seen it in the past.
Because it's a heck of a temptation to put in a bit extra.
I've had people in the past say, "Oh, I always put just a little bit more for luck." Well, it's really going to work on the opposite
You don't reckon
way.
that's lucky?
No, not at all.
Okay, mate.
You'd be lucky if you improve your catch rate with it.
Because obviously you field test this at those flavour levels.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, we have field testers that do things at different levels, and they come back and say, "Well, that was really good," or "That probably could have done with being a bit lower."
And over the years you fine it down. Yeah.
That's it. So that one there is the amino, which is a pure fish protein extract.
Right.
I use it in everything and on everything.
Right.
So.
And the salmon oil, some of that's to do with the rolling?
Yeah, it helps with the rolling, especially when you're first starting. It helps with the oiling of the rollers and with fish meals as well. It helps when you put a bit of oil in to come through. And again, it's the taste coming out the bait as well at the end of the day. Dual purpose additive.
Yeah.
Right, so all your bits and pieces are in, all the liquids are in.
Okay, good whisk up.
Important bit to get it all mixed together nicely.
Right.
Before we start adding the powder.
And then it's add the powders second, of course.
Yeah. With the powders we're adding, we're just going to add a little bit at a time.
Yeah, sure.
Don't just dump the whole lot in because you end up with
I've done that before, it's very easy. Dump it all in and then...
trying to make shortcuts.
You can't get yourself out of trouble.
No, that's it. A little bit at a time. And basically you're just building up on the consistency all the time until we get the finished product.
And what you're looking for is a putty type. You know, it doesn't want to be sticking to your fingers, and obviously it doesn't want to be the other side of too hard.
That's right. Yeah, I mean, if it's too sticky, it's going to cause you problems. It might come out of the gun nicely, but it will stick to the table. And if it's too hard, it won't come out the gun.
Yeah. Sure. Yeah.
That's it. So it's at the end of the day, it's experience and a bit of. The more you do it, the better you're going to get it.
Yeah.
You get your different mixes work in different ways for you. But it's quite important to keep your recipes written down so you know how much you've been putting in and what sort of consistencies, what sort of flavour levels with what mix you're doing.
And that's the only way to develop your own baits, isn't it?
A lot of people
will be doing this.
You'll end up with a bait that you're happy with. It will be easy to make, easy to roll, and can be 100% different to everyone else's. I know we're doing a base recipe here today, but you can add your own little tricks into it. Things like betaine, green-lip mussel. There's bits and pieces you'll find around the local supermarket that people put in, especially with more and more sort of fishy additives from sort of Chinese cooking and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
So just keep adding small amounts of powder in, keep mixing it in.
Right.
Do as much as you can with a fork or a spoon. It's going to get to a point any minute after the next bit of powder that goes in where I'm afraid you're going to have to get your hands dirty, or I am anyway.
Okay.
So we're going to add a little bit more powder in.
That's pretty well there now, is it?
Work the bit in. Alright, that's it. In goes the hands. You just knead it in. Slowly working all the dry powder into the middle of the mix. It's quite a fine, with the Icelandic red, it's quite a fine mix. It's not coarse at all. Not a lot of bird food mixes you'll find will soak up all the flavours. Again, it's sort of down to a bit of practice, how much powder you need to add in before it starts drying out on you. But with fish meals and the Icelandic red and baits like that, you'll find that it's quite a fine mix, and there's nothing in there that will tend to swell up like a lot of baits can swell.
Right, okay.
When the powders, the ingredients start to take the moisture on.
No, I know it's a mix we sell a lot of, so it obviously is pretty friendly for rolling.
Yeah, well, it's good for rolling and
it's good for catching fish.
Yeah, that's it. The results at the end of the day. As you say, it wouldn't be so popular if it was hard to use or didn't bring the results. So there you go. 3 egg mix, flavours, additives, ready to go into your gun for
stage 1
to roll it.
Okay, so Jules, can you explain the point of a plastic bag?
Yeah, basically, when you've got your taste of the finished article, it's basically starting to dry out all the time it's out on the table.
Right, and it's quite quick.
Yeah, it can be. I mean, the oils will start coming out of the bait as well, so basically I always, if I'm making it at home, put them in a plastic bag or put them inside a wet tea towel.
Right, okay. And if something interrupted your bait making,
yeah,
what
I normally try and say is, if you're making bait, you're making bait. Don't let anyone interrupt you.
Right, okay.
It's when you're going to make
Don't answer the doorbell.
No.
Okay, fine.
Leave them outside.
Serious stuff.
Yeah. Basically, so that will keep it ready to roll while you get everything else ready. Your rolling table and your bait gun.
And with the rolling table, you're wiping a little bit of salmon oil.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, it pays to keep your equipment clean, really. Putting a bit of salmon oil on your rolling table not only keeps it clean from last time where bits and pieces have not been cleaned off properly,
Sure.
but it also helps lube the table ready for a bit of rolling.
Right.
So basically, not very much. It's just
Just a little bit on the end of the rag and just wiping it so it kind of shows.
That's it. You don't want to flood the table with salmon oil. But
No.
So there you go. Basically, a nice boiled up table ready to go. Make sure you put the lid back on. You don't want to knock that one over.
Yeah. Okay, so now it's a case of simply creating the sausages to go on the rolling table.
That's right.
And you pick the right nozzle size for this particular table.
Yeah, okay.
And you're going to load her up.
Yeah, we're using 16mm table, 16mm nozzle. So basically it's as simple as take your bait out of the plastic bag you've been storing it in so it stays pliable still. Put it into a big sausage so you can slide it in, hopefully. A little bit more.
Yeah.
Which you can slide straight down into the gun, making sure your nozzle's still there.
And you're using a big bait gun because you do a lot of bait.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, it's nice to get a gun that's going to be able to cope with it. So
there's a lot of pressure goes through those.
That's right, and never have any problems with it. So basically, you put the sausage in, tighten everything up because there's quite a bit of pressure on it, and then slowly take all the play out of it until your sausage starts coming out.
All right. Okay, that
So
looks
basically,
good.
onto the rolling table.
So how many sausages do you tend to do at a time?
Well, the tables can cope with up to 3 at a time. Obviously, it's probably best to wait till you've had a bit of practice before you start doing 3s.
Yeah.
But we'll just start with 1 here so that we can
Show
how
the
it
process,
works.
yeah.
Basically, gun your sausage out. Try not to stretch it. You know, try and keep the gun moving as you lay your sausage out, and then make sure everything lines up and squash down onto your sausage. So theoretically, we should have nice round boilies now.
There you go.
You can just flip them
Oh yeah.
onto the air dry tray, which obviously is doubling up as somewhere to store your baits before we boil them.
Right. Okay, you finished rolling. We've got some nice baits here. We've got some nice round baits, and the procedure now is to boil them. Would you like to run us through that?
Yeah, basically the idea of the boiling is to put a skin on the bait. It basically enables you to put the baits out further. They put a skin on it so that nuisance fish...
Yeah, it keeps the
don't-
small fish off them.
So basically each size bait you're looking at different boiling times, but as a rough guideline, like 14 mils I'll do for say 90 seconds,
Right.
and 18 mils for 2 minutes, and moving slightly up for bigger baits as you go through.
Okay. Is there a maximum boiling time you'd put as a before you
Basically a 24 mil, you're probably looking at 3 minutes.
Right.
But again, if you're using them in throwing sticks, you might want to boil them for a little bit more. If you're using them as big bait feed in the margins, you only need basically a skin on it.
Yeah. Okay. So there's all sorts of other parameters to buy, but as a general time, 90 seconds to 3 minutes for the biggest.
So a couple of minutes for your 18s is your general size bait, and your general boiling time.
Right. And any tips on the boiling itself? I know you've told me that the water must be absolutely boiling as you put it in,
that's
as
right.
you put the baits in.
As you said, the water has to be boiling.
Yeah.
Don't just leave it simmering and then put them in. And basically stick to your times on the whole of your batch, and then you know that every single bait's
You know
boiled
where
the
you
same.
are. Yeah. Okay.
When you've boiled your first lot, because obviously you might get half of this into your pan, boil it, take them out, and bring the water back to boiling point again before
Okay.
you put
So
the rest of them in.
each time you're going into boiling water.
If you put them into simmering water or water that's not on the boil, obviously if you boil those for 2 minutes, they're not going to be to the same level as the ones that you've done.
2 minutes in the boiler.
Yeah,
Probably
so-
boiling pan. Okay.
Try and keep everything the same, as with your mixing and your boiling. Keep it the same regimen all the way through.
And that's where you get your quality.
That's it. That's where you know that everything's going to be the same every time.
Okay, we've boiled the baits. We've got a bunch of boiled baits in front of us. What about storage, Jules?
Well, at the end of the day, Rick, the best thing to do is take the baits and go fishing.
Okay, yeah.
But obviously we all live in a perfect world, so if you are going fishing, put your baits into an air dry bag, take them with you.
Right.
Obviously that's the best way of doing it. Basically with these baits, they've just been boiled. I personally would give them like 3 or 4 hours drying, using the drying racks to get all the moisture off of them.
Okay, before you freeze them down.
Yeah, basically put them into a bag, mark
Bags.
the bag up,
Yeah.
so you know exactly
Get as
what
much
it is.
air out of it as possible.
Yeah, and then freeze it down.
And then freeze them down.
Yeah.
Okay. And well, of course, the beauty of making your own baits is it's not just the flavours and mixture you've got control over, it's the shape of it.
That's right.
And I'm quite interested in this lot. This is something you've been doing for the last couple of years, I gather.
Yeah, I mean, obviously we use all the different size Gardner tables every day, and sort of messing around with things, we come up with.
Well, those look like little barrels to me.
That's right. I mean, we call them barrels, dumbbells, but basically we use a 14mm sausage out the sausage gun, but rolled on a 16mm table.
Okay, so you don't have the correct amount of mix to make the ball, but
That's
you end
right.
up with a barrel.
So
Right.
it offers something a little bit different. Still catapults out really well.
But it's something quite different from the carp.
Yeah,
for
that's
the
it. I
carp.
mean, if you think virtually probably 95% of carp anglers that are using boilies use round baits.
and it always have.
So there you go, something a little bit different.
Yeah, and these ones here, I mean, they look like trout pellets to me.
Yeah, well, this was a sort of the progression from the barrels. These ones are 12mm sausages, basically rolled on an 18mm table. So same principle, less mix in the channels.
Right, even less mix.
But a wider
And you get
wider point of rolling.
Okay, yeah.
Something totally different for people that like using a proper quality bait. But obviously, if they're using pellets, these will stay on all night.
Yes, yeah.
And they're there all the time and don't have a problem with nuisance fish again. And then obviously the next one we did was basically stepping it up a size, which is a 14mm sausage on a 20mm table.
Right.
Gives you a bit more scope for getting it out further. Obviously the same principle applies, a bit less sausage in the channels.
Right.
So something for everyone. If you've got a few tables, you can mix and match and play around. You might come up with something.
You could just come up with whatever you want, yeah.
That's right.
Well, thanks very much, Jules. I'm sure that's helped everyone with a good idea about bait making.
No problems.